Hey folks, Jordan with 2IT, 2IT Politics. Hope you're having a lovely Monday. I was just live on youtube.com/2IT Politics. Wanted to join you on Facebook for another video, this time on my friend Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I'll wait a minute to make sure you could hear me, you could see me, so let me know all those good things. I will admit I am late to this news. Not to give you my sob story, but I've been dealing with severe back pain. And when this came out, I was on pain medicine. So I did not want to go live when I was hopped up on drugs. Although that might have been fun. My rotator cuff is fucked up. So I've been dealing with pain and icing my back/rotator cuff. And I'm trying to figure out what will be the best way to go forward, because obviously I can't go around the country in back pain and shoulder pain. So if you have any ideas, let me know. But on August 3rd, the Sun Sentinel in Florida published a piece, an exclusive interview with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, where she broke her silence on the scandal surrounding her and her IT staffer. Again, I would have done it last week, but I've been in a lot of pain, so I was pretty much icing and napping. So I wanted to respond to this. She comes up with a lot of excuses for her keeping on a IT staffer who's been under criminal investigation since February. So share this video. Make sure other people know what's going on here. I'll read you some of the story, then give you my thoughts. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz defiantly stands by her decision to keep an information technology aide on her payroll for 6 months after he was banned from the House network and fired by other members of Congress. Quote, I believe that I did the right thing, and I would do it again, Wasserman Schultz said Thursday in an exclusive interview with the Sun Sentinel. By the way, the Sun Sentinel, if you're familiar, down in Florida, has done puff piece after puff piece after puff piece about Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Went after Tim Canova very hard in the congressional race between Tim Canova and Wasserman Schultz, and basically does whatever it can to protect Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She continued, there are times when you can't be afraid to stand alone, and you have to stand up for what's right. I wonder if she was standing alone when she screwed Bernie Sanders in the Democratic primary. Oh no, she wasn't standing alone, because she was orchestrating the whole thing with other DNC staffers. It would have been easier for me to just fire him, she said. The Weston Democrat did fire Imran Awan last week after he was arrested on bank fraud charges at an airport while trying to leave the country. As the former Democratic National Committee chairwoman, Wasserman Schultz is the most prominent Democrat who employed Awan, and the only one who kept him employed after a criminal investigation opened up into whether he stole data and other equipment, and after he was banned from the House server or having any access to the House equipment. Her decision to keep employing Awan has been under fire from her Democratic primary challenger, Republicans, and multiple conservative websites. This is the stuff that you keep hearing in pro-Wasserman Schultz outlets and in outlets like Slate.com, which I tweeted over the weekend criticizing, because it's not just conservative media that's been reporting on this. I'm not conservative media. For sure I'm not conservative media. Other outlets, other independent figures have been reporting on this for months, way before I was reporting on it. So it's not just conservative media, but when liberal media or corporate-friendly media wants to shield people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they put in headlines or they put in the story, oh, the conservative media. It's a conservative media story. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a big fan of most conservative media because I don't think they have their facts right. 9 out of 10 stories. And a lot of what they do is propaganda. Fox News, Breitbart, Drudge, I go on. There's some conservative outlets that from time to time do okay. Daily Caller, from what I can see, has been right on the facts. And Daily Caller has done a lot of reporting on this story. But whenever you read in a Sun Sentinel or Slate or any of these things that it's a conservative media story, that's just their way of saying, well, we can't report critically on someone like Debbie Wasserman Schultz because we are in love with the establishment. And shame on Slate.com for their story over the weekend. Slate.com used to be pretty progressive. Really crappy story they did, shielding Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So I'll read that one more time. Her decision to keep employing Awan has been under fire from her Democratic primary challenger, Republicans, and multiple conservative websites. They've suggested Wasserman Schultz is hiding something, and the Awan matter is much more serious than she's letting on. No, they're not suggesting. The facts are suggesting that. His arrest, the Congresswoman said, had nothing to do with the months-long investigation of Awan as an IT worker for a variety of members of Congress. An FBI affidavit filed with the criminal complaint said Awan and his wife claimed a property used to secure a home equity line of credit was a, quote, principal residence, when it was, in fact, a rental property. Wasserman Schultz said there still hasn't been any evidence presented that he's done anything wrong involving his work for Congress. And she said she believes he may have been put under scrutiny because of his religious faith. Awan is a Muslim. Oh, Jesus Christ. Like, does any criticism of Democratic Party establishment figures, can any criticism be met with something else than you're a sexist, you're a misogynist, or you're a racist? I'm asking truly, because it's insane. All they do, all Debbie Wasserman Schultz does, all the Joy Reids of the world do, all now the Kamala Harris supporters are doing is, oh, you're a racist. Oh, you're a sexist. You're a racist. You're a sexist. You're a misogynist. You're A, B, C, and D. Any criticism. It's unbelievable. So wait a minute. This guy has been worked for House IT staff for House members, 22 to be correct, for a decade, and just now they're racially profiling him because he's made bank transfers that are suspect. He's filled out forms with misleading information, and there was enough alarm bells that went off in February for a criminal investigation to be held, looked into him, and it's because he's, quote, his religious faith. Give me a fucking break, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. That's ridiculous. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's not religious or racial or gender discrimination that goes on in Washington or in America. Of course there is. But I am against using that as your blanket umbrella to protect you when the shitstorm of rain is coming down on you. There's no evidence that Imran Awan has been racially discriminated against or religious discrimination. By the way, in fairness to Imran Awan, in America, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, so he's not been convicted of a crime. He's not convicted of a crime. Yes, Ali, I will be at the People's Convergence Conference, and I'll also be at Netroots Nation. I'm flying out Wednesday to go cover Netroots Nation for TYT Politics, so you could see me down at Netroots. We'll be on Facebook, we'll be on YouTube, all that stuff. That's why you haven't seen me as much, because I've been icing my shoulder because my rotator cuff is partially torn. And that's not fun, if any of you have had that before. I have shooting pains now into my arm. So if you see me holding up a microphone and looking like I want to cry, that's why. So ease off on the criticism, just for a day. So Debbie Wasserman Schultz is saying, well, I didn't see any firm evidence. I didn't see any firm evidence of a crime, and I think he's being religiously discriminated against. Well, tell us, Debbie, do you have any evidence that he's being religiously discriminated against? Or are you just throwing that out there because that's what you folks do? If you're under criticism, it's because people are racist or sexist. What is the evidence that he has been targeted by the Capitol Hill police that are investigating him because of his religious faith? And if so, why did he work for 22 House members over the last decade? Him, his wife, and other family members. Was there religious discrimination that went on there? If so, we should know about it, and that should be investigated. So, in February, Wasserman Schultz said, Chiefs of staffs for members of Congress were told that Awan was under investigation and his access to the House network was suspended. House payroll records show that multiple members of Congress terminated Awan quickly, early in February. Instead of firing him, Wasserman Schultz said her office worked with the House Chief Administrator Office to develop a job description that would, quote, allow him to continue to do work until such time as there were other charges brought or we had some evidence that there was something that was produced that warranted further action. Now, this is where it's not adding up. Why? Okay, we know Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not a morally courageous figure. We know that most politicians are not morally courageous figures. So why is it that all the other House members fired Imran, his wife, and his family members that were working in IT, but Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the only one who took that extra measure to find a job description that would allow him to continue to do work until such time as there were other charges brought or we had some evidence that there was something that was produced that warranted further action? Why would she take that extra measure for Imran Awan? She obviously must have had a lot of faith in Imran Awan. She obviously must have had a lot of trust in Imran Awan. She obviously must have had some type of relationship with Imran Awan. But why is it that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was the only member of Congress who A, didn't fire him, B, took the, I would say, extraordinary measures to come up with a job description for someone who could not actually work on your IT needs? Again, he was banned access to the House server since February. So she went out of her way for Imran Awan, who, by the way, WikiLeaks showed had access and had her passwords for her iPad and presumably other things. So Imran Awan has had access to Debbie Wasserman Schultz's iPad, probably laptops and other things, and presumably documents and private information she doesn't want out there. That's not me speculating. That's just common sense. If somebody has access to your iPad, your laptops, which she threatened, by the way, she threatened the chief Capitol Hill police officer with consequences. She's going out of her way to keep him on the payroll, even though he has no access to do anything for her. Something don't smell right, folks. And let me tell you, like I said, I'm not saying there's no religious discrimination in Washington, D.C., or racial discrimination or gender discrimination. Of course there is. But we got to get away from this. If there's an investigation into something, or I or other progressives criticize a politician, that immediately you're sexist, you're racist, or you're a bigot. Because that's ridiculous. Kamala Harris has a record. Hillary Clinton had a record. Debbie Wasserman Schultz has a record. It's not attacking them on racial or gender levels to point out that record. Thank you, Jake. He says, I can't really stand most of the left, but Jordan isn't a shill. You know, it's very surprising to me. I'm getting more and more conservatives messaging me saying, I don't agree with a damn thing you say, but I really respect your work. So that's how you know you're doing good stuff, because I don't report to protect Democrats. I don't report to protect conservatives. And I don't even report to protect progressives. If a progressive's doing wrong, I will be the first one to say it. But this doesn't make sense. So she went on to say, I had grave concerns about his due process rights being violated. When their investigation was reviewed with me, I was presented with no evidence of anything that they were being investigated for. And so that, in me, gave me a great concern that his due process rights were being violated, that there were racial and ethnic profiling concerns that I had. So, again, she's just throwing it out there, but what specifically was done during the investigation or not done during the investigation that gave you, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, concerns that Imran's due process was violated, or due process, or racial and ethnic profiling? What was done in the investigation that took away his due process or was racially profiling? You don't say. You don't say what was done. You're just throwing it out there because that's the go-to playbook for people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz. When you're under attack, you're a racist or you're a sexist or you're religiously profiling now. Wasserman Schultz said the chiefs of staff were told that Awan and his family members were having their access to House IT network cut off because they were under investigation for, quote, procurement violations and data transfer violations. Wasserman Schultz said, from what she had been able to discern, the data transfer issue doesn't involve anything sinister. So why is it that Wasserman Schultz is the only one who didn't see, nothing to see here? There's smoke, but there's no fire. But all these other House Democrats fired the guy. They saw something. They saw something suspect, or at least it was too risky to keep this guy on the payroll, being that he's under criminal investigation. Again, under investigation, not convicted. He's entitled to due process. Instead, Wasserman Schultz said it involved, quote, transferring data outside the secure network, which I think amounted to use of apps that the House didn't find compliant with our security requirements. Sound familiar? Transferring data outside the secure network? How you doing, Hillary Clinton? An example, she said, is the storage service Dropbox, which allows people to store documents and other images and share them with others. Wasserman Schultz said she believes other IT employees engage in the same kind of data movement as Awan, but aren't being investigated. So you think Debbie Wasserman Schultz is basically saying that this guy is under criminal investigation because he transferred Dropbox footage outside the secure server? Come on. Don't insult our intelligence. That is definitely not why this guy is under criminal investigation, for transferring some Dropbox folders outside of the House of Representatives server. That would be more a slap on the wrist, a suspension, him being told you're not supposed to be doing this. You're not going to open a criminal investigation into that, I would think. Wasserman Schultz said Awan didn't have access to any classified information. She and other members of Congress aren't allowed to store classified information in their offices and on their computers. When they go to secure locations to receive classified information, then members of Congress aren't allowed to bring any kind of electronics. Wasserman Schultz even has to leave her Fitbit fitness tracker outside and aren't allowed to leave the room with any written notes. In 2016, Awan was paid $20,000 by Wasserman Schultz. In 2017, he was paid about $7,800 from the beginning of the year until his July 25th termination. His salary rate didn't change while his duties changed, spokesman David Dameron said. Wasserman Schultz said she hired Awan when she went to Congress in 2005 at the recommendation of then U.S. Representative Robert Wexler. So let me tell you something. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is crying racial or religious discrimination with no evidence, and she still hasn't explained why every other House member saw enough evidence that they wanted to fire this guy, but she didn't see any evidence. She needs to expand on that. Why is it that she sees something that no one else sees? The only conclusion that reasonable people can bring or meet is she didn't want to fire this guy because she feels firing this guy could have a negative impact on her. That's common sense. So we'll have to continue to follow this where it goes. I don't believe what she's saying. It doesn't meet common sense requirements, and it also is inconsistent. And also, why would you keep somebody on as an IT specialist if they can't do any IT work for you? He had no access to the House servers. So if you have a problem, who are you going to send it to if this person cannot access your IT network? That makes no sense. I'll stay on this as long as I can. There's been other independent journalists covering this, so go check out their work. And stay tuned for more. YouTube.com/TYT Politics. Thank you.